Why do Black Americans seem to tease so many African immigrants?
They're not the most educated.
Well, I'm black, they're black. What is the problem? We're all the same. And they told me you're not black, you're African.
They tend to not understand it, and that's why they tease.
Well, we have the same skin. Mm-hmm. Why am I told that I'm not black?
You're outside of that. Mm-hmm. We just hear the slave part of it.
It seems like Black Americans, in the sense, have taken ownership of the race.
Hey, if you never seen something and you see it for the first time, it's going to surprise you a little bit.
Yeah. Africans are responsible for the slave trade.
For one, you didn't go through slavery yourself. Mm-hmm. Your ancestors did. Mm-hmm. We know we came from Africa and all that.
We don't sound the same. We don't dress the same. We're different.
You probably eat different food coming from where you come from.
Mm-hmm. And you guys sold us. So why should I trust you?
And you coming from a foreign place.
What makes you African besides the fact that your ancestors came from there? Do you identify with the continent at all?
It's ignorance, it's misinformation. For a lot of the other countries that have had the slave trade and things like that, in America, the black people have progressed the most.
Mm-hmm. And then we divide it even further by saying, well, you are not black, you are not whatever. Black is a central and unified form of identifying us as a collective group. And some people like one term more than the other. But essentially, it's all about us coming together. Whether you want to be called African American, Black American, or simply Black. This video is about understanding who we are, where we come from, and where we can go. I sit down with Carrie from the YouTube channel Carrie HQ to discuss this. So guys, when my family moved from Africa to the US over 20 years ago, there were some challenges, and it took a while in order for me to really connect, understand, and even make African American friends. I felt like they had something against me because I'm African and they didn't understand anything about me. And it took several years. It took, maybe I say 5 years later when I got to college in order for me to actually be able to make friends in the Black American community. So today I wanted to kind of talk about these challenges and what differences we have, Black versus Black, African versus African American. So I'm here with Carrie HQ. Follow him, his channel link is going to be posted below. So Carrie, how you doing today, man?
I'm good, man. Excellent. Can't ask for more.
All right.
How about you?
I'm doing well. So the first point is going to be regarding the differences that we have. Why do Black Americans, and again I'm overgeneralizing, but why do Black Americans seem to tease so many African immigrants in the United States?
Origin from West Africa, but when I came from Africa, I did not appreciate them African jokes. Let me ask you a question right now. What the hell is an African booty scratcher? Please, kid.
Well, just like anything with kids, I think they're not the most educated at that time, right? And so anything that's super different, they tend to not understand it, and that's why they tease, because it's different from what they're accustomed to. I think that's the main thing. I think pop culture has a lot to do with it.
Hey, the boy from Africa, how y'all doing this evening?
Sir, where can one go to find nice women here?
Oh, you got to get out and look. They ain't gonna just fall in your lap.
Pop culture paints certain narratives and stereotypes into people before they even get a chance to show you who they are. You know my history. I'm raised in America, born in Texas, grew up in New Jersey. I consider myself very, very knowledgeable about culture in America. Like, I grew up there, and it's a complex place. So, there's not a direct answer to that question. It's just more about looking into the cause and effect of it. Hey, if you never seen something and you see it for the first time, it's gonna surprise you a little bit,
Yeah. Well, in my case, being a Black person, I felt like, well, I'm Black, they're Black. What is the problem? We're all the same. And they told me, you're not Black, you're African. So,
and whatever container you came in, and whatever trunk they smuggled your black ass in, take your ass back.
So, how you feel about this? Personally, being Black American, do you see Africans as Black? Because to me, I was shocked. Well, we have the same skin. Why am I told that I'm not Black? It seems like Black Americans, in the sense, have taken ownership of the race.
Yeah, well, there is a entitlement, probably, the way, and this is not to speak, this is really dealing with like I wouldn't expect older people to do the same things. Hopefully, I'm sure they do. You know, those people are just immature and they're not going to change their whole life. But for kids, you probably sounded different. You probably had an accent.
I still do.
Yeah, so that is gonna, you know, for them, the slang that they might use might not relate to you as much. You probably felt like you didn't understand what they were saying sometime or whatever. You probably eat different food coming from where you come from, like, or your parents might have different rules.
African people don't like black people. Y'all know they treat us like shit. They talk down to us. They think they better than us.
Like, I know for me, I had a little bit more freedom. I had a good friend. His mom was a little bit stricter. Like, I remember, like, your mom is tripping. He couldn't do this or do that, you know. And his mom was very African, like that. Well, they stuck to their roots. She wore like the African clothing and all type of stuff. And I remember she would be cooking stuff I never seen before. But we became friends. He happened to be more popular than me, and I was a new kid at school. So I think a lot of your experience has to do with just being new, coming into a world where normality has already been established in a way, and you're outside of that. So I can relate. Like when I moved from Texas to New Jersey, they was calling me the boy from Texas and whatnot. So
yeah, but you know, besides the kids, there's also something I've heard from grown adults in the Black American community is basically this idea that, well, we've gone through slavery and Africans haven't, and you guys sold us, so why should I trust you? You know? And I felt like, well, I didn't sell anything, my family didn't, wasn't part of it. So I think there's this common misunderstanding that, you know, well, Africans are responsible for the slave trade. So, and that creates some of the tension, you know, that we're talking about right now.
Because white people, when y'all ancestors came to pick us up, y'all wasn't looking for little bony brothers, y'all was looking for big cotton picking motherfuckers. And them little bony ones over in Africa set us up.
yeah, and I think that stems a lot from just misinformation. We don't know the truth about what happened 200, 300, 400 years ago. We just hear the slave part of it. We were a slave, we know we came from Africa and all that. I think it was very complex. And aside from that, it's kind of hard for us to claim the hardship of that in this generation that we didn't go through slavery. You know what I mean? So like, I kind of feel like even black people today in America that didn't go through slavery have a little bit of animosity towards the African, and that's completely like unwarranted, because for one, you didn't go through slavery yourself, your ancestors did, and for two, like I said, we don't know exactly what happened, and obviously you didn't make the sale, right? Definitely didn't. You know what I mean? So it's like, this is one of those things where people hold on to a thought. It's ignorance, it's misinformation, it's a whole lot of what we have in the world today, a lot of hatred. People want to hate somebody, they want to blame somebody. So, you know, and you coming from a foreign place and not knowing how to defend yourself that well, you're an easy target.
Yeah, because this common bond between African Americans and blacks in the Caribbean, the common bond is the heritage of slavery. And I've heard many people tell me, well, I have more in common with Jamaicans and blacks from Brazil and things like that than with you, because, you know, your family didn't go through this. You don't know what it's like. And I do want to take advantage of this conversation to mention the idea of this period of history where Africa was colonized. And in many countries, you know, they're still colonized today in the sense that they're not free to make their own decisions. You know, a lot of African countries struggle economically, and many people are forced to immigrate to the United States in order to find, you know, better opportunities. And then there's a friction. I was like, well, you guys are coming here so much and taking away our jobs. This is also a theme that I hear often, is that, well, you know, just like the Latin immigration into the US, there's also that friction with, well, there's a lot more Africans here, so they're competing. So that creates more tension also. It's like, you don't feel, you're obviously not white, so you're not part of that community. You're also not Latino, so you're not part of that. And the closest thing to you is the black community in America, but then you can identify or relate to them. We don't sound the same, we don't dress the same, we're different. And then this idea of competing for jobs, it creates even more tension. So it's like a whole different community within the black community. And it's very difficult at times. You know?
Yeah, I could empathize with that, man. And I think a big part of it too is Africa is so far. Whereas though you're Jamaican Americans, Jamaica's a lot closer. And I feel like they have more of a sense of community.
Yeah.
Like I know parts of big cities that are like Jamaican parts of town. I know parts that are like Cuban. Like people don't know. I mean, I've been to Cuba. Half of Cuba is like all black. But like obviously in Miami, there's a huge Cuban population. They stick together, yada yada. I don't really know of too many places. Maybe in Atlanta, I feel like there's a big concentration. Also in Houston, Texas, there's a big concentration of Africans. But it's rare to see a formation of Africans in one place type of thing. Like I don't know if you know of any, but I can't think of any off the top of my head.
The concentration of Africans within the United States, or just the Americans
In the United States, where they come and set up shop, like Chinatown.
Yeah.
Or like in Brooklyn, where it's like all the Hasidic Jews.
Yes.
And they own the whole, like a few blocks.
Yes.
You know, like.
Yeah. Well, in the state of Maryland, where I live, you do have some neighborhoods that are heavily concentrated with African immigrants. We moved to this place called White Oak. It's in Silver Spring, Maryland. And it's a lot of immigrants. It's basically all immigrants. And as you go south towards Langley Park, it just gets, busier with immigrants. I don't even think there's that many black Americans in those areas, compared to actual immigrants from other countries. And not just Africans, but also Latinos. So I know of like blocks, but I don't know of specific sections, It's hard. It's like also with and this is a different subject, but you have Latin grocery stores. You have Asians grocery stores.
Exactly.
I can't really think of even an African American grocery store. It seems like as a race, we're lacking that organization in order.
You mean as an African, strictly African, not African?
Even in like black as a whole, what identifies us when it comes to businesses like grocery stores? I mean, you have small shops where you can buy African stuff, specific spices, but not big enough. Like I can't think of a brand,
right?
Latin people, they have their grocery stores.
Yeah, like Goya.
Exactly, we have that.
Yeah,
they have that, but like the black community, African or American, does not have any of those things. So we already divided, and then we divided even further by saying, well, you are not black, you are not whatever.
Yeah.
So it's kind of crazy to
it's
me.
like a sub-segment.
Right.
Like, no, that's true. I mean, they even, in America, they even use some of the African American likeness to sell products like Angie Mama, syrup, and Uncle Ben's rice and stuff like that. But for one, I don't think the demand is there because the food is mostly American food. I mean, there's not enough people that are, going out searching. There's not the demand, basically. And, the African American diet and the, I guess, white American diet uses the same ingredients. It's just ours tastes better.
Okay. Yeah. That's funny. Yeah. That's funny. So you have a channel, you have an audience, you have people watching you. What do you think you can do and I can do in order to bring Africa and America closer? Because my perspective is very different than yours because of where I grew up. And I don't know if you've been to Africa yet, but are you planning to go? Because there's also like this lack of curiosity, I think. I don't meet many black Americans, honestly, and this is not about money, who say, oh, I want to go to Africa. Like, I mean, I know it's growing, like the DNA checks and everything, but a lot of people, like you, percentage-wise, I feel like a lot of black Americans don't care to go. They don't care at all. Like, they don't feel connected to that continent. I was told before, I'm not African, I'm American. Yeah. That's why often, honestly, I don't even use the term, I don't like to use the term African American. I use the term Black American. Yeah. Because what makes you African besides the fact that, your ancestors came from there, but like, do you identify with the continent at all, or do you feel not connected whatsoever?
And it sounds like you're saying there is a difference between African Americans and Black Americans.
There definitely is a difference. Right. But these are differences that can be celebrated or used to separate people. Noting differences does not implicitly make it a bad thing.
Well, speaking for myself, I definitely want to go. I'm highly interested. I had a lot of truly African friends throughout my life. I'm super interested in the history, especially when it comes to like Nubia Sudan, Egypt, and all that. There's a little bit less of a connection, maybe West Africa, because there's not much we know about West Africa in that history. Of course, America is not going to teach us that. And if we're not directly from there, nobody's going to even bring it up. So, you know, whereas though, like, there's cultures that are more popular, like Egyptian culture, that led to Nubia and whatnot. That's more in the forefront of my head, naturally, you know. But other than, like, certain people that I have personal connections with that I met over time that are from West Africa, that makes me want to go there because I know them. I have a buddy that lives out there, and I follow him on, like, Instagram, and it looks awesome, man. Just for that, like, I want to go check it out. Some of the YouTubers that go to those areas, I think their stuff is cool. Unfortunately, there's not a big interest for us African Americans to go backtrack and find out a whole bunch about what's going on and what happened in West Africa. All we highlight is slave trade. Like, that's where the discussion ends at.
That's right.
And so that's kind of a problem. So I think, to your question about bringing us closer together, you know, promoting, you know, the history of what happened, really. And it might be hard to uncover because history is generally written by the winners. So if you lost the war, the person that killed all your people is going to write the story. So who really knows, right? At this point, we're 400 or 500 years down the road. So it's kind of tough. But I think, like, you supporting the African movements that you see in the U.S., because there's a lot of African Americans that want to get in touch with their roots and that are, like, really into that stuff. And there's a lot of people that they never been to Africa and they're not from Africa and don't really have a family connection in their generation. But they like, Africa's becoming cooler, you know.
Now that I live here in the U.S. and I was born in Africa, technically that makes me African American.
Like, it's kind of like the African Americans' way separating themselves out from, like, the white America. You know what I mean?
And I'm very happy with the surge of Afro beats, because I think like maybe this is the connection. This is the roundabout where we're all gonna finally meet.
Yeah.
Because for once, African music is getting, you know, a lot of attention from all over the world, and with the way these artists are getting so popular, you know, maybe people will, you know, get a little more interest. Thanks for talking to me today about this conversation. And I think we have a lot of differences, but what connects us is much bigger than our differences. So I just, you know, as a friend, I wanted to, you know, kind of address this subject. So
it's a very cool subject, man. And I think it's one that everyone's free to chime in on. You know, a lot of what we're speaking on is anecdotal experience. So everyone has a different experience. I can't speak for everybody, right? It's a really healthy discussion as well, because it's kind of sorting out any differences, and address the animosity in the room, right? And me personally, I think when you grow up and you become educated, hopefully you should be able to understand that people come from where they come from, and you gotta learn and accept, you know, them for who they are. So those are my last thoughts, really. I think I'm excited for the coming out of Africa. I think Africa is gonna do great things in the near future and beyond. And I think African Americans as well are doing a lot of great things in America. We've come a long way. We've fought a long way to just get to where we are. So we are very proud about who we are in America and our history, because for a lot of the other countries that have had the slave trade and things like that, I feel like in America, the black people have progressed the most. Because, you know, there was slavery in Brazil, Colombia, Cuba, but in America, we came the furthest so far. So,
being from Africa, I know black. I'm well versed in the arts of black. I'm from the black factory. And there's no cooler black than American black. Nothing cooler, you know?
I think we gotta help out each other with whoever has black skin is, you know, is someone that you should at least try to understand their journey, right?
Right.
And so that's how I feel.
All right. Well, thank you. Just so you guys know, watching this, Kerry does consultation. He lives in Colombia, and he has a lot of knowledge regarding the immigration process and just the lifestyle in general. So if you are interested, Kerry, how can you get a hold of you?
For sure. So it's real simple. Kari, K-A-R-I, period, H-Q. You can reach me there on Instagram, and the same thing on YouTube. As Ivan said, I've been living in Colombia and Medellin for 3 years. You know, I've learned an immense amount of things out there in Colombia, and I love helping people find their way, find their footing out there. So if you are looking for a specialist in Colombia to help you with anything related with Colombia, reach out to me. I got a huge Rolodex from lawyers to immigration specialists to people that can help you find apartments and, you know, everything.
Right.
Yeah, man, reach out to me, Instagram and YouTube, man.
All right, outstanding. And guys, thank you for watching this. I hope you've enjoyed it. I believe the United States is the best place to be as a black person when it comes to opportunities. And I'm thankful for everything that the country has provided to me personally. There's just so many things that, you know, it's easily taken for granted. But when you travel to places like Brazil, in Colombia, in Costa Rica, El Salvador, all those places, and you see how, you know, black people live, it's really, really sad. So I think I encourage you guys to travel more and visit other countries. Whether you're black, white, whatever, it's just good to see how other people live. It just makes you appreciate home much more. So on that note, guys, see you on the next one. Peace. Peace.
You were the time of my life. Yeah, you brought the days to my night.